Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto, I'm a photographer. In this video I have with me the brand new Viltrox Spark on-camera flash. And I'm gonna be sharing some tips on how you can make awesome looking pictures with this Viltrox Spark flash or any similar small on-camera flash. But first a disclaimer, Viltrox very kindly sent me this, or actually they sent me two of these Spark flashes. But other than that, this video is not sponsored, no money changed hands, and no one told me what to do with these flashes or what to say in this video. I do have an affiliate link for this flash down below, so after watching this video, if you feel like you want one, please use my link down below and support my channel at the same time. And now let's get to the point of this video. I shot all my pictures on my Nikon Z6 Mark III camera, but this flash is also available for Fuji, Canon and Sony, and it's compatible with those cameras' TTL light metering system. So in most cases you can leave the flash on automatic mode and you'll get perfectly exposed flash pictures. This kind of an on-camera flash creates very, let's say, signature two-dimensional type of lighting into your pictures. Everything that is very near to the camera, near to the light source, in this picture my hand, appears very bright or overexposed in the picture. The subject itself, in this case my face, appears like correctly exposed, and everything that is behind the subject appears usually very dark because it's so far away from the camera and far away from the light source. These very dark black shadows are also part of that signature two-dimensional look. Back in the film days we saw a lot of pictures like this. And a flash, something like this, was pretty much a must accessory in every photographer's camera bag. Because anytime the light levels dropped, you went indoors, the sun went down or whatever, you pretty much had no other choice than pull out your flash to get some light into the scene, because you could not crank up the ISO like you can do with a digital camera. And that's why we had so many of these signature flash light looking pictures. And everyone hated that flash look in the pictures because it destroyed the ambient lighting and all the ambient mood in the picture. However, today a flash is not a mandatory or a must accessory anymore, because we can use our digital cameras in extreme low light conditions or extremely difficult lighting conditions and still get very satisfactory results. So today we can embrace that two-dimensional look and create some cool looking pictures and effects with an on-camera flash like this. And if we don't want that look, we can simply remove the flash and use our cameras without the flash. And my first tip is to embrace that two-dimensional look. Let the flash dominate the scene. It's relatively easy to achieve indoors because the ambient light levels are usually quite low indoors. But outdoors in bright sunlight it can be a little bit difficult, especially with a small flash like this. However, on a cloudy day or in the evening, even outdoors, it's pretty easy to get that signature two-dimensional look in your pictures with a flash like this. But before you begin, make sure to turn off the live view preview on your camera. Or if your camera has the option to display the live view preview only when the flash is not used. For example, this Nikon Z6 Mark III has that option, and pretty much every relatively new mirrorless camera should have this same option. Please check out your camera's manual, owner's manual, user manual. On this Nikon you go to the custom menu D10 and select only when flash is not used and you're all good to go. The reason for this setting is that we are trying to underexpose the ambient light as much as we can. When we are underexposing the live view preview goes very dark and it can be very difficult to see what is in the frame or compose the picture. The next step is to choose manual exposure and then select the fastest possible flash sync speed on your camera. It's usually something like 1/200 of a second, can be 250, 160, but it's in that ballpark. Again, please do check out your camera's user manual to find out what is the shortest possible flash sync speed on your camera. And then select a relatively high f number. My recommendation with this Viltrox Spark flash is around f5.6, f8. And make sure you have also selected the lowest ISO setting on your camera. So basically you should have something like 1/200 shutter speed, f5.6 or f8 and ISO 100, depending on your camera. This flash is not super powerful, so if your main subject is relatively far away, let's say beyond 5 meters, you may have to open up the aperture to f4 or even f2.8. But if your main subject is very close to your camera, 2 meters, 1 meters, you can easily choose f11 or even f16 to get more depth of field. My next tip is a fill flash. You can reduce the contrast in your scene or you can create cleaner looking light with a fill flash. Now here's a picture of my guitar without a flash. Those light streaks and shadows are quite pronounced and contrasty. And here's another picture with the flash. And as you can see, those light streaks and shadows are much less pronounced and less contrasty in this picture. In this picture, I used aperture priority f5.6, ISO 100 and automatic flash, which is so convenient. At least this Nikon does a very good job with the flash, automatic flash. I almost never have to worry about the flash exposure, no need to apply any kind of exposure compensation or anything. Here's a picture of my good friend Peter, and this one really looks like the typical flash picture. I used manual exposure f2.8, 1/125 and ISO 100. And obviously I'm not happy with this picture because the background is way too dark and the light on Peter's face also is a little bit like harsh and hard. So to rectify those issues, I used a longer shutter speed of 1/30 in this picture, and as you can see, it looks a lot better than the first picture. However, the background is way too warm because I had to adjust the white balance according to the flash, which is of daylight temperature. So the background, which is not daylight temperature, goes very yellow and too warm. And I was not entirely happy with this picture either. So I decided to take one more picture of Peter. And for this picture, I put a warming orange gel over my flash to balance the color temperature of the flash with the color temperature of the background. Everything else is the same in this picture, f2.8, 1/30 shutter speed, ISO 100. But this picture does not look so much like a flash picture compared to the two other pictures. So a warm orange gel over your flash can sometimes save the day or save the photo. The color code for the warming gel that I used is 85B, which turns daylight to tungsten. But feel free to experiment with some other types of warming orange gels over your flash. Another situation for fill flash is backlight. If the background behind your subject is relatively bright and your main subject is in the shadow, you can balance the lighting between your main subject and the background with the flash. In the first picture, the main subject is only a black silhouette. But in the second picture, the lighting is balanced between the main subject and the background. I used manual exposure, f3.5, 1/15 exposure time, ISO 100, and automatic flash. And one more tip is to combine sharp and motion blur in one frame. The short flash duration will freeze any motion in the scene or any motion near the camera, and a long shutter speed or longish shutter speed will create motion blur all in the same frame. Here's one example. The person with the umbrella in the foreground is completely frozen and sharp, but the background is slightly blurry because of my 1/100 shutter speed combined with the camera motion creates motion blur. Here's another umbrella picture. As you can see, the umbrella and the person are completely frozen in the picture, but the background is slightly blurry because I was following the person with my camera and my shutter speed was 1/100, which was not enough to freeze the background because my camera was moving. On both pictures I used manual exposure, f5, 1/100 shutter speed, ISO 100. It was a cloudy, rainy day, and that kind of an exposure was enough to also create a pretty dark background and create some contrast between the bright main subject and the background. This Viltrox Spark also has a slave function, and you can trigger one remote flash with the flash on your camera. However, there is no other remote control. You have to put it on manual mode and dial in your desired flash output with the dial on the back of the flash. With two flashes like this, you have so many more creative lighting possibilities. One example would be to place the slave flash behind your main subject to create a brighter background and to avoid those dark shadows in the background. In this picture I used only one flash on the camera, and in this other picture I placed the slave flash behind the main subject, behind myself. Now let me share my likes and dislikes about this flash. First like is the compact size and lightweight. The second like is the design. Viltrox calls this steampunk inspired design or something like that. And I really like how they made it slightly different from most other flashes. I especially like this transparent top of the flash. You can see some of the components and some of the interior of the flash. The next like is the very clean and simple user interface. I especially like this large dial for the manual output, and also the on-off switch is very clean and simple, and you can immediately see in which position the switch is. No push buttons on this flash other than the test button here on the top. I hate push buttons because you can't really see in which position the button is, and sometimes those buttons have multiple functions. You double press or long press or whatever, and it's so confusing. These simple dials are so nice and clear. And the last like is the internal rechargeable battery, which you can charge with any USB-C compatible power source. My only real dislike is that the internal battery is not user replaceable. So if and when the battery dies, reaches the end of its life, there's nothing much you can do about it. That is not environmentally friendly solution, and it's not a user-friendly solution. It would be so much better if there was a battery door. I could open that door and replace the battery with a new one, like I can do with my camera, with my action camera, and with so many other devices. This Viltrox Spark is a very simple basic flash, but I think that's the beauty of it. Many, especially beginners, find often flash photography slightly confusing. But with a simple flash like this, it's so easy to start exploring flash photography. Pretty much anyone can start using this right away, out of the box. The learning curve is almost flat. The price for this Viltrox Spark flash is $59.99 US, €62.99 euros, and £51.99 pounds. In my opinion, if you're looking for a small, compact, affordable on-camera flash for your camera, this Viltrox Spark, is definitely worth a look. And if you decide to buy one, please use my link down below. That's all I have for you in this video. And if you found this useful, helpful, and maybe even entertaining, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you soon in the next one.